Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the strongest chess tournament of the year. It's currently October 2025. We've got the top 3 players in the world, and we have the literal world champion playing against each other. Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, Fabiano Caruana, and of course, the world champion, Gukesh. In St. Louis for a 3-day tournament where they play a double round robin against each other, and every single day, a win counts as more points. This is day 1. Today, a win is 1 point. Tomorrow, a win is 2 points. And the next day, a win is 3 points. Why we can't get them to play like a regular high-stakes event with 7-figure prize fund in the traditional format, I don't know. The chess world is in a little bit of a weird spot, but I'm going to start showing you the games, and they were great. The day 1 was fantastic. Very exciting, very unclear who the favorite is. You would think it's Magnus Carlsen, but he recently became a dad. He might not be getting a whole lot of sleep, might not be playing a whole lot of chess or studying a whole lot of chess. You've got other players, right, doing their own things. And so we're going to kick things off, all right? So first I'm going to show you this game between Gukesh and Magnus. Then I'm going to show you a game between Fabi and Hikaru. Then we're going to look at Fabi and Magnus. And then we're going to look at Hikaru and Gukesh. And then we're going to look at Magnus and Hikaru. I mean, literally everybody plays everybody. It's amazing. Every single game is interesting. So we'll kick things off in the game between Gukesh and Magnus. And they are playing 10-minute chess with a 5-second bonus time. Magnus opens up with e4, d6. This is the Peer's defense. And then he plays e5. This is the, whatever. It's kind of like the Philidor, I guess. I mean, normally you play g6, bishop g7 if you want to play the Peer's. And then, yeah, this is just kind of the main, this is the modernized Philidor defense. It's a good opening, but it's very passive and it's not very massive. So if you are not good with a space disadvantage, don't play this. Magnus plays c6. Very nice move. Preparing b5, looking for d5 ideas, stopping white from ever getting into the middle of the board. Gukesh plays rook e1. Both guys go like this. I actually have played this setup myself with black, and I have no idea how to play it. Gukesh played bishop to e3. We got a trade in the center, and Magnus put his bishop on f8 to open up the lines for the rook. Gukesh went knight to d2. Again, in this format, you don't have a lot of time to think. Gukesh's best format is the format that he won the world championship in, right? And so when you remove 90% of the time on the clock, the narrative has been he is not good yet at the faster formats, less of an intuitive player, more of a calculator, but he's getting better every single day. He just had a great performance in the European Club Cup after a rough performance in the Grand Swiss. Can he then put a stamp and beat Magnus again in rapid chess? In this game, he's looking to do exactly that. Magnus developing all his pieces and striking in the center. Gukesh plays the move bishop to g2. All his pieces are in pretty comfortable squares, and Magnus makes a slight inaccuracy early. Now you can play bishop takes knight and take on d5. Gukesh plays a6 though, pawn takes, and now tries to kind of Wreck-It Ralph the queen side. Knight takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop d5, a swapping of the rooks, and Gukesh just gets this position, grabs the pawn back, and I mean, this is a position where if Magnus had white and basically anybody had black, I would be like, all right, well, Magnus is going to go to work. He's going to win the game. He has 2 weaknesses to work with, 2 pawns isolated, completely separate, but not so fast. Okay, here comes queen b5. Immediate counterattack on the rook and the pawn. Gukesh drops back. Magnus starts advancing the weakness. Queen to a4. Magnus doesn't trade the queen, instead looking to infiltrate the white position, targeting everything. Gukesh plays knight back to f1, rook to a6, and before you know it, the boys both have around 2 minutes on the clock. Magnus goes rook e6. Rook a6, rook e6, the idea is an infiltration of the white position, chucking this pawn, letting it walk up to be a queen, and in the meantime, Magnus is going to try to checkmate him. So, Gukesh plays pawn takes, and queen h3, and now the move queen d1, securing the position before advancing this pawn. Gukesh might be better, but he has a minute to find this move, and he doesn't. Of course, he plays a6 because it's a very natural move. Rook e1, queen b5, defending from a distance. Now Magnus plays a wicked move. The move that Magnus plays now is a punch to the stomach, all right? Bishop c5, sacrificing the bishop, not to the queen, of course, because then queen f1, and what am I saying? Rook f1. Of course, queen f1 is mate in 2. Rook f1 is mate in 1. When you have mate in 1, look for better. That's what they always say. Queen d3 back, and if you're wondering why bishop takes c5 cannot happen, What? Oh, knight e5, knight f3. Wow. I tried to find it myself, and I was like, how the... Okay. Queen d3, takes. Rook went to a1. I mean, it looks like it's all over. And it is. Gukesh here, feeling the pressure, tries to trade the rook, tries to remove the defense of the first rank, and here's something absolutely crazy happens. Gukesh realizes, by playing this move, that Magnus can now jump in with his knight, threatening a checkmate on g2, and if you threaten this checkmate, you can't take the knight, because then I would go queen check, winning the rook. And that is what Magnus plays. Gukesh thinks down to 2 seconds and resigns. Except Magnus blundered. He may play knight to f4. What could be more natural? Attacking the queen, threatening a mate you can't take because queen g4 and rook d1. But this move throws the game to knight e3. And if you take the queen, because mate is now stopped, I take, and that pawn is going to promote. And this game is equal. If anything, practically speaking, I feel like white is playing for something here. Magnus needed to play knight h4, and the idea of knight h4 is knight f3's mate. Knight h4 threatened 2 different mates and completely stopped knight e3, and this move would have won black the game. Magnus picked the wrong move. It was 50-50, but Gukesh thought down to 2 seconds and resigned. What a way to start the recap. Gukesh resigning, surrendering himself to the defeat. And I was like, oh my gosh, that really is the Magnus effect, because, I mean, this is a really ridiculous thing to think of with 14 seconds on the clock, especially because you saw you blundered it. But actually, there is a big difference between where you put the knight. Magnus gets us started with a victory. Now, Fabi and Hikaru, meanwhile, they were battling it out. Teammates just a short while ago, earlier in October this month, with me on USA versus India. Hopefully, we get a rematch. I hope they're figuring that out, the sponsors or whatever. G6, Hikaru went for an accelerated dragon, and Fabi played some, like, new approach to this opening where you can just play like a bishop c4, and Hikaru obviously going for some super weird squiggly Sicilian with every single pawn on a light square. Yeah, this is called the Swiss cheese Sicilian. All right, knight e7, bishop g5, and now he starts playing f6 and d5. All right, I mean, this is some really, really new age stuff, just developing none of the pieces. If the kids are watching this, please look away. Fabi's like, well, I feel like if all his pieces are back, I can start an attack. And he's absolutely right, by the way. And he very quickly gets a very strong positional advantage. What does that mean? It means that your pieces are significantly better placed than your opponents. It means that long-term, you own control of all the important light squares and all the important squares, empty squares, and physical pieces. And that's exactly accurate. Black does not control important squares. Black doesn't have a lot of forward mobility in the position. Black has more of the weaknesses. And now Fabi is going to do his best, you know, impression of a 1980s, Soviet grandmaster. B4, playing like H4, and this is how you know who has a better position. The guy's got more pawns on dark squares, complementing the bishop, direct target. Hikaru defending very, very well, one of the best in the world. But the problem is, even if it looks like you've done everything right, sometimes in a position, your position is so bad long-term that even a trade, just a fair trade, loses you the game. Why does this lose black the game? Well, first of all, it still attacks every weakness. That's number one. It's the weakness, right? It's very, very instructive how a trade wins the game. This pawn will be rendered defenseless. This pawn will become a pass pawn, which is extremely important. But actually, more important than any of that, the white king runs directly to the middle, and white wins the game. So this game will be won with king f2, king f7, king here, king here, king here. This looks like, what's the big deal? The big deal is this is actually Zugzwang. This is like, black will run out of moves in the long run. You will maneuver your bishop in such a way, like, let's say here, and here, and here, and here, and you will get into e8, and I will have to go here, and then I will play c6, and then I will win d5, king c5, etc. This is the way I'm going to win the game. Your pieces are completely frozen, and that is exactly how Fabiano Caruana built up a completely winning position, ended up swooping and winning a pawn, and just won this game. Look, everything is on a dark square. Good positioning, advanced, and won the game. Beautiful game. Beautiful game from Fabi. Like, really. this is so instructive that, like, from here, if you give this position to like a 2,000 rated player and below, I'm not sure they win it. To be quite honest, it's not like, where is the win? Very few people would understand why Queen C5 is so strong, and you have to appreciate that. But Hikaru gets the white pieces in the next game, and these guys are very, very evenly matched. When Hikaru is on form, he's a monster. And in this game, he plays, I don't know what opening. This is like a same-ish King's Indian defense. C5 from Fabiano Caruana, and E6 breaking in the center. White holding it all together. A4 preventing pawn to B5. Now you're going to maneuver the knight to the G3 square because you couldn't move it to the F3 square. You could, if you could eat your own pieces. Riveting commentary here from the balding 29-year-old international master. Short castle, bishop d7, restricting the queen side, not allowing the queen to come out or the pawn to come out. It does anyway. Fabi's like, I gotta go for it. Hikaru, meanwhile, trying for his own positional masterclass, putting pressure on the a6 pawn. Nice bishop control here. Fabi doing the typical King's Indian stuff against the same-ish, where you advance this h-pawn, but this knight actually repositions and is very, very happy. And now here comes the counterplay. The game, though, is very back and forth. Hikaru in the next few moves is going to obtain a decisive positional advantage if he plays rook to e1 and pawn to e5, completely winning. Instead, he moves this rook, which is fine, but now he needs to either play e5 or the unfindable rook to e3, and actually this is why it was better to move this rook, because when e5 happens, this doesn't attack the rook. That is why that had to happen. Instead of that, Hikaru did it like this, and now you can't play this move, because after pawn takes g2, I attack the rook, and this is a very different situation. So Hikaru moved the wrong rook, and suddenly the game gets extremely chaotic, as Fabi is looking to make a comeback. And not only does he make a comeback, within the next few moves, Fabi gets a completely winning position of his own. Completely winning is a stretch, but he needs to take the rook and be brave. And Hikaru's obviously just going for a kingside attack because he needs to win the game. Fabi doesn't. And now queen d2, you can take the rook, which he does, but in comes the knight. A mistimed capture of the rook, helpful repositioning for white, and white relaunches an attack on the king before barreling in with the horses. King to g2, and Hikaru consolidating the position, dancing in with the knight, dancing in with the queen, and ultimately the attack is successful. The king is hunted out. Queen h7, queen c7. This match was a draw. They went back and forth. They each got a game. Very, very, very gritty game for Hikaru. I mean, a gritty game. I don't know how else to describe that. Now, we move on to Fabiano Caruana, Magnus Carlsen. The thing about this format is that the games are decided down the stretch, and they are exciting. They are chaotic. They are not easy at all. Watch this game. So this was, we're not going to get into all of the complications. This is an Italian. They are mirroring each other. h6, white takes the queen side. Normal. Magnus playing in a very kind of hanging back fashion. Not allowing something to go to the g5 square. Castles, all good. h3, knight d2. Typical stuff in the Italian. White has advanced a lot and actually is playing in the center. Magnus waiting for Fabi. Fabi taking, advancing, not trading the queens. And look, every Italian is slightly different, okay? White here is trying to advance on the queen side in case it's not obvious. Sometimes you attack on the king side. Sometimes black attacks you on the king side. That's going to be really difficult to conjure up. Or maybe not. More on that later. You know, Magnus totally evacuates the queen side and is like, you did all of this and there is nothing there. You broke into the Louvre, but there is nothing for you to steal. That's a current events joke for those of you that are watching in 2025. Instead, he's like, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to just counterattack. And within a few moves, yeah, he gets a completely insane attack. The knight has to run away. Magnus in with the rook as well. And then just, you know, doubling up. He also had king h7 ideas where he could have maybe used the g file. Oh my god, Fabi's getting mated. I mean, he only has 2 minutes. But then Fabi's like, who's attacking who? Who's attacking who? Look, knight to f5. And by the way, h4 here is the best move for white, sealing the whole thing. Fabi finds it. So Magnus was attacking Fabi. Now, Fabi is attacking Magnus with the knight on f5 and the knight on b6. Total domination here. Queen f7 is mate in 2 if you forget about it. Rook d1, knight c4, not the right move. Apparently g3 was better, but he plays knight to c4. Magnus gives away the pawn. It's given a double question mark because you can take it with the rook. Fabi's like completely winning. Rook G7 check. Magnus goes knight H5. Now the best move here is the move Queen E2, which is completely unfindable unless you're Fabiano Luigi Caruana. I'm pretty sure that's his middle name. And I am not stereotyping Italians. They are not all named Mario and Luigi and Fabiano. Shocking, I know. Knight takes, queen takes, and Magnus Carlsen was losing if Bobby trapped his knight. Pawn to F3, trap the knight. You say, Levy, what are you talking about? No, it doesn't. The knight can just take on C3. Yeah, no, it can't. Because then you would have done this idea. Then you would have, Queen C2 doesn't quite work, but Queen C1 works because there's a threat on the knight and this, and that's game over. Fabi misses that little idea. He goes Queen C2, and suddenly Magnus is back in the game, or maybe not. Queen G4, and now this is pinned. So knight D6, adding pressure, or knight D2? Knight D6 and knight D2, PP on the PP. Put pressure on the pin piece. Fabiano Caruana, knight D2, winning the knight on the spot, but he goes here. He takes the free pawn, and when everything chops off the board, it's actually Magnus who might be winning again. Now we're having a horse convention in the center of the board. Queen G6. Fabi is back to being better if he plays knight E5 or knight H4. He does. He plays knight to E5. Completely insane game. Queen goes back to the H7 square. Queen goes to D1. Magnus finding literally the only moves not to lose on the spot. He's playing these moves for like 3 or 4 seconds. The knight comes back to F3. Now it might be a draw. Check here. And this is really difficult. You got to go here and also threaten this. Instead, we have Queen H4 and Queen A1. This is mate. So you go knight to G5, sacrificing the knight because you can take it, but then I would take on F2. Magnus goes for the shock value move. Instead of taking it, he goes King G6. Now we trade some knights off the board and queens, and black is winning, but he messes it up because white can now play B5. And apparently this is equal, but it's never going to be. I mean, you're never going to figure this out. And here white needed to take, and then play knight D5, knight C7, but Fabi, with, the time that he had left, he goes here, and this is losing. And Magnus chops it all down and gets in with the king. And after some 70 moves, he defeats Fabi in a crazy, crazy back and forth game. So Magnus won his first 2 matchups. Meanwhile, Hikaru is like, all right, Gukesh lost the first time to Magnus, and he is obviously the one with the target on the... He is the young world champion. There are all these narratives. Is he going to play up, his rapid level, his speed chess level? Let's watch this game. So, D4, okay, knight F6. This is one of their games. By the way, the other game was drawn. The reason I'm not showing you every game is some of the games were draws. In this game, it was a relatively normal Nimso-Indian, Ragozin kind of. Knight F3. From the opening, I really liked white's position, but Gukesh played a very aggressive line where he just attacks in the center. Look at his time management. Above 10 minutes means he knows the opening very well. Hikaru played bishop B5, which is not the best move because I think black can play E4 here, and then queen G5. For rapid, that's kind of difficult to spot. Instead, Gukesh plays bishop G4, which is a very natural move. Yes, me here, I would back up to E2, but Hikaru took. And then went queen A4 and tried to force bishop takes knight for some dynamics. But instead, it was a battle of bishop versus knight. And from the early going, I really liked white's position. I mean, I thought this bishop, which Gukesh repositions to the D3 square, I was like, the bishop isn't actually doing anything there. Like, you're going to move around it. You're going to try to get the knight to D4 and B4 and pressure the pawn. And I mean, I don't see what the plan is, but actually it was not so easy. And even though Hikaru must have had an advantage early on, he kind of stumbled and allowed this bishop to just get anchored in. And now Gukesh has a very easy plan, which is win this pawn and win this pawn. And it's not really clear what white is doing. Suddenly this bishop is actually quite a headache. And suddenly Hikaru is going to go down to like a minute and a half. He's making really quick moves, but Gukesh's plan is much more natural. It's a knight versus bishop. They're kind of irrelevant. They're equally irrelevant. If anything, the light squared bishop for black is doing a better job now because it's controlling certain important squares, and you're going to run out of room here. But how is black going to break through? Where's the breakthrough? Well, the breakthrough is actually like mutual pressure on both sides of the board. And look at rook b3. Suddenly the pawn is threatening to queen, right? Because of all the pressure. Knight b3, there's queen c3. Gukesh finding it with 10 seconds on the clock. Hikaru playing on the time. Gukesh wins the pawn, marches the pawn down, and this game ends with Hikaru just playing a quick move, hanging the pawn in front of his king. This is hanging, this is hanging. Rook g5 is a huge threat as well. And Gukesh beats Hikaru. So he bounces back from the heartbreaking defeat against Magnus to beating Hikaru. I mean, you talk about a victory for the ages. Like I said, I mean, in the early part of the game, I kind of liked I thought that this bishop like somehow wasn't going to be so impactful. And if you ever traded it, you know, White would just have a very easy game where he would put a lot of pressure. But Gukesh figured it out. I mean, he played extremely well. So we go to the final round of the day. Magnus has won both matchups, right? Gukesh has won one of the matchups. So, I mean, yeah, like let's see what happens. Obviously every point counts, right? So Magnus has 2 wins, 2 draws. Hikaru has a win, 2 losses. So Hikaru is actually in last place going into the 3rd game of the day, and his reward is that he has to play Magnus. Now here, Magnus plays d4, and then he plays the Jobava London. This might be recency, you know, bias, but if he played this to honor Danya, that would be very, very special. Of course, Magnus has also played this before, but you know, this was the favorite choice of Danya and also of Alexander Bortnik. They both play this all the time. They even, I think, wrote a course about it. I know they wrote a course about it. A6, H6. This is a very modern setup. You play 2 waiting moves. You shut down all sorts of nonsense like knight b5, knight g5. Actually, I play this with black myself, and it's a very nice line. You wait for the knight to come out to f3, because when it comes out to f3, black tries to very quickly pin it, and then play a very normal setup where you play like in the center. A3 is a mutual waiting move, and a3 also stops the move c5, because pawn takes and b4. Fun fact, Alexander Bortnik played the move a3 against me in an over-the-board blitz game, and I was like, that's a dumb move, I'm going to play c5. Then he defended his pawn, and I lost in 15 moves. But that says much more about me being a moron than it does about him being a, you know, genius chess player, although he is. e6, now you have to block in your light-squared bishop, and black plays c5, very nice position, takes, bishop d3. Hikaru playing knight c6, very principled chess. Magnus attacks the center, both guys castle, and Hikaru plays the move b5. And black has done everything right. The pawns are staring at each other, the bishop is going to choose which way to come out. I mean, the position's just equal. Magnus plays e5 and queen d2, obviously looking for bad intentions on the king side, when Hikaru just immediately strikes back with his pawn and gets this position. I gotta tell you, black is doing very well. Black is doing very well. White is not the one attacking here. If anybody's attacking, it's black. Looking for the bishop, looking for the knight on f3. We have a trade, we have rook e1, and now I would just very simply take the bishop or play knight c4, getting the bishop taken. Hikaru plays knight takes bishop, and bishop d7. And here with white, you allow bishop here. And after you allow that, you also allow d4, and I think white just has a very nice position, although this knight still needs a little bit of time to reposition. Magnus does play that, and Magnus plays d4, and now Magnus can very slowly massage the position. Rook e3, ideas like rook f3, just in the future, h3, g4, f4, if you'd like to start some sort of attack. This just plays directly into white's hands. Again, white would love to get this knight somewhere, but it's not so simple. Now the best move is rook g3 and knight a2 to try to play knight c1 and knight d3 and knight c5 and jump around. Magnus plays g4. He kind of goes for you know, the decisive attack here, trying to give the pawn up, but Hikaru backs up. And now we have queen g2. It looks like a lot of progress is being made. a5, Hikaru looking for queenside counterplay of his own, basically calling the bluff, saying, Magnus, I don't believe you. This is not your style, Magnus. You are not checkmating me, Magnus. All right, g5, Magnus, what are you doing, Magnus? That's just a free pawn, Magnus. I think the word Magnus goes through Hikaru's head that much. Yes, I am not embellishing. Bishop takes f6, queen f6. Where's the attack? Where is the attack? Bishop b5, the counter. Now white either loses the rook or moves it up and allows the infiltration, or moves it this way and allows the pawn to be taken on f4. And suddenly, it's black who is winning. The complete counterattack on the king side, knight to h5, and Hikaru wins the game. Queen g4, Magnus plays and just resigns because it's over. Not only is black up 2 pawns, he's probably going to win even more. There's like rook f5 incoming. Yeah, rook f5 is just game over. And Hikaru completely reverses course and defeats Magnus in the final matchup of the day. And if that wasn't shocking enough, in their very next game, Magnus had black. You would think he's gonna get revenge. He's gonna play the Sicilian. He's gonna look. Actually, he played e5, and then he went into the Spanish. This is the Berlin, and Hikaru is like, well, I won the mini match. Like, I am just gonna force a draw. And that is exactly what Hikaru did. And Magnus obviously could have played for more, but in a shocking turn of events, their last matchup of the day ended in 30 seconds. It was quite clear Magnus didn't want to keep playing. He sensed something was off. Maybe he was tired. He was like, all right, I'm going to rest and I'm going to battle another day. I'm going to get out of there. And Hikaru was just very happy to win the mini match, I think, especially after the last game. Joking aside, that might have been Hikaru's best over-the-board game against Magnus. Over the board, not Title Tuesday. Over the board, they don't play that much. They play, they might play in some freestyle, or they might play in some, they played in Norway chess, but that last game, this whole counterattack, on the queen side and like good defending, this was an excellent game by Hikaru. Fantastic game. Now, the last matchup of the day is Fabiano Caruana versus Gukesh, right? Gukesh just beat Hikaru. Can he beat Fabiano? This is a rivalry, but Gukesh recently, I feel like, has been having some good success against Fabi. Now, in this first game, we got an English. Gukesh played this move h6, waiting move. Nowadays, you can play h6 and a6 basically anywhere. We have e4, knight e2, all normal. Fabi is playing the reverse Botvinnik. This is the Botvinnik English, but in reverse. And he gets a pleasant position from the opening, but that doesn't really mean much. Bishop g4 is an exceptional move. You can't take it, of course, because the knight check would be a fork. But none of this mattered, as in the opening, Gukesh ended up sacrificing a knight, and it was extremely dangerous for white, but nothing too crazy. And then here, Fabi had to find a move. He had an advantage, but he had to find a move that was unfindable. There's a lingering fork, but white is up a knight, so losing the rook wouldn't matter as much because you would end up having 2 knights. But the move here that you have to play with white is knight d2. You have to play the move knight to d2. That is the only move. Just cramped, allowing the pawn to come in. Instead, Fabi goes here, and very quickly, the attack comes in against his king. He tries to defend himself. Gukesh slams in the rook on e4, and just a few... By the way, you can take this, right? Queen e4. It looks like black just wins. This just looks like mate. Okay? c5 is what Fabi goes for. Knight to d4 is a draw. Knight d4 is a repetition. Instead, Fabi's like, what? c5. Losing. This is losing. You lose the knight, and then black is a move away from opening up the bishop. I'm not really sure what Fabi thought he had here. I'm really not sure. Clearly, some mistake was made because now he loses everything, and the queen just comes back, and black's pressure isn't over. You're up a rook, but black's pressure isn't over. The king goes to h2, you take, and it's actually black who is winning. It's black who's winning. He has 3 pawns for the knight, and you are severely restricted, and black is faster. Here comes the black rook, here comes the black queen. We're getting into a scramble, 9 seconds, 18 for Gukesh. And suddenly, the pawns are connected. One is running away, rook to d4. Gukesh sacrificing a rook to promote, and instead, this is just a losing endgame. This is a losing endgame for white. Fabiano Caruana down a pawn, but more importantly, dominated in terms of activity. The king is forced back, and even though he's going to win a pawn, it's check and king f3, and this is game over. This is a losing endgame simply by 1 pawn, because you have checks, and after rook f1, you take. You go here, and Gukesh wins the pawn race. Oh my goodness. And if you think that's an impressive game to end the recap, Fabiano Caruana looking to strike back? Well, Gukesh played a solid opening. It was a King's Indian from Fabiano Caruana. That is what you play if you want to win. We saw that in the game earlier, although Fabi actually had black in that game. Fabi looking to win with the black pieces, got a pretty comfortable position, and then he launched an attack, And my guy Gukesh was like, how dare you? Don't you know who I am? I am the world champion. You trying to attack me. By the way, Fabi has a 3-minute time advantage. 3 minutes. King h8, rook g2, rook to f5. We go here, rook d5. And out of nowhere, Fabiano Caruana, with all his pieces parked on this side of the board, swoops in to grab a pawn. And Gukesh detonates the move from the chess gods, bishop. Okay, well, Gukesh could have detonated the move from the chess gods. Maybe he will do it on the next move. Gukesh detonates the move from the chess gods, bishop. Okay, now Gukesh detonates the move from the chess gods, bishop to f6. Third time's the charm. Bishop to f6, and yeah, it actually worked every single time. He could have played bishop f6, deflected the bishop, and took this pawn, and he was winning, but he did it with some more preparation, and now bishop f6 wins, because you just take, and you can't stop mate. You cannot stop the decisive attack, as all the black pieces are on the other side of the board, and at the end of day one, rook g8, by the way, rook g8, queen h6 mate, at the end of day one, folks, the reigning world champion is in first place. 4 points. He has the most wins, right? He got the most wins. He won 3 games. Magnus only won 2 games. And Hikaru won 2 games, but he also lost twice. So these are your standings. Fabi's actually trailing, but keep in mind, as the tournament progresses, winning a game gets you more points, you know? So a win tomorrow is 2 points. That could mean really bad things for Fabi, or it could mean really good things. And it's very close between the guys in the top 3. That's all I have for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed this recap. I look forward to covering more exciting chess. You know, these are probably the 4 best players in the world right now. You know, if we're being honest, obviously it's a question of Prague and Arjun as well. But in terms of titles and accolades, it's these guys. Anyway, you know the drill. Get out of here.